Thank you very much for joining us today. We're going to be talking about what's new in RAD Studio 13 Florence. As we already said, my name is Antonio Zapater, and I'm a pre-sales consultant engineer at Embarcadero. And the agenda we're going to be going through, RAD Studio 13 is quite a big update. Not because it has any new, very flashy, well, it does, but it's like a conjunction of multiple very nice quality of life improvements, and also rounding up and finishing up a bunch of different areas. But just a few highlights is we have a new ternary operator that everyone is very excited about on Delphi language. We have updated C++ Builder to our tool chain to Clang 20. We complete the 64-bit IDE migration. We released a first version or a preview on version 12.3. Now this is already finished, and we will see what it means. Visual Assist also has been integrated and updated. A new feature that everyone is very excited about is a new set of components for AI, in this case, for you to use them in your applications. We will see in detail what this is about, and also multiple new features for VCL. As I said, a lot of new improvements in the RTL and VCL space. And Web Stencils and Web Broker have got a lot of new features as well. We launched Web Stencils in version 12.2, I think. We improved it in 12.3. And in 13, after the big success that Web Stencils have been, we're betting big on Web Stencils, and we launched or brought a lot of new features as well that we will see. I usually skip this slide because if you're here, it probably means that you know what RAD Studio is, but let's quickly go through it. RAD Studio is a software development IDE for building multiple applications for multiple platforms. RAD Studio contains two languages, Delphi and C++, that they both take advantage of each other. So Delphi takes some bits from C++ and vice versa. But they all share the same IDE, what we call RAD Studio. It helps for visual designers. It has embedded AI, blah, 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 blah. I'm fairly sure you all know about this. Okay, so what's new in programming languages and compilers? And Delphi Object Pascal is a powerful and readable object-oriented programming language, as you probably all know. And RAD 13 includes significant extensions to the language because we're very committed to keep Delphi relevant and modern. So let's see a few of these new features in 13. As I was saying, one of the biggest new introductions in the language is a new ternary operator. It's pretty much like an if. A lot of people say, well, what's the difference between this and a standard if? Well, if you're familiar with other languages, a ternary operator is something very, very common. So what allows you to do is to integrate simple or basic if statements in one line. And you can not only create them in one line, but also integrate them in, for example, as we can see here in this example, in this whole message down here, we can put an if inside a sub message. So it's pretty much like a very nice quality of life improvement. So because in this case, for example, it saves you to create an if, then store the result data in different variables, etc. You can also do stuff like this, as we can see. You can have a variable and assign the result directly using an if. We played around with different syntax options. Because if you're familiar with other languages, probably you know that the most common syntax is with a question mark and then two dots to separate the truthy from the falsy section. But we wanted to be loyal to Pascal, so we Pascalized the ternary operator, and it's very readable and very simple to follow. Of course, this has specific rules. So, for example, you cannot mix types. You couldn't define an if we follow this example. You couldn't define, for example, an integer and then on the else side define a string. So all that has been handled now by the compiler. As I said, very, very powerful and very, very handy stuff with this new ternary operator. We also introduced name of, which is a way that if you're familiar with .NET, probably you know how powerful nameoff is. Usually if you're creating REST APIs and stuff like that, it's pretty much to return a string representation of the identifier you want. For example, it could be a variable, it could be a property, whatever. You use nameoff, and then you get the string representation of that. So it's a very nice way to keep things tidy. So instead of you typing in strings, you can convert the actual identifier to a string. New push OPT and POPT compile directives. And this is a bit similar to C++, for if you know pragma option push and pragma option pop. Implicit self parameter declaration in record class operators. So you now have a static class operator to initialize and finalize. This is, again, some kind of synthetic sugar. So you don't need to type too much extra information. Now you can do it in a nicer and easier way to save some typing. More Delphi language features. We polished the not in and is not. So what we did is to make things more readable. For example, if we follow the example we see here in the code snippet, before the classic syntax, if you want to say is not, you had to negate the condition outside, which makes this a bit complex to read. So now you can use if object is not tfoo, then whatever. And the same thing is with not in, which for me, this one was the most complex to read. So now you can say if X is not in this array, then whatever. So this is much nicer to read. We also have no return directive. It's a bit of a niche option, is to avoid a warning that was created in case a procedure not returning something. It's just to avoid getting that warning. If you're sure that for example, if you raise an exception and you're sure that that method is not going to return something, then you can define the directive to avoid a warning. Additional constraints for generic types. Now you can define types of interface and unmanaged in generics. And extended the if OPT directive to support long directives. On the C++ side, we're very committed with C++. So in this new release, we've updated our toolchain even more, because in case you're not aware, in version 12.0, we started a whole revamp of the C++ Builder toolchain, like from the ground up. It was very, very old, and one of the reasons we had to scrap a lot of the platforms that were available for C++. So now we are in version 13, we took it even further, and now we've updated C++ to Clang 20, which means that now you have C++ 23 specification available, which is the latest C++ ISO available. That's the default 23. As you can see here in this screenshot on the right, now in the project, you can choose between different ISOs, so specific standards for C++, and the default is 23. So now we're exactly with the latest C++ specification, which is quite a big deal for us compared to what we had prior version 12. And this only proves that they were very, very committed to C++. And we're very excited about what this will bring on the table for us and allow us to do in the future now that we're using the latest C++. And this, because I know that usually on webinars and presentations, if I go to a live event, usually there are more Delphi developers than C++ developers. And I like to emphasize that this is not only good for C++ Builder users, because as I said at the beginning, these two languages take advantage from each other. So this is also very good news under the hood for Delphi as well, now that we have this very up-to-date C++ specification. Along with the update to LLVM and Clang 20, we also improved in C++ the address sanitizer runtime, so you can spot potential issues with pointers and address allocations. Now we version the shared libraries. So if you want to have multiple versions of C++ Builder installed in the same machine, now the DLLs, they come versioned. so you don't have conflicts between different DLLs. And also we improved compatibility with legacy versions of C++ compilers. The installation, as you probably know, it has two phases. So we have a first installation. We install the very basic details we need, or files we need. And then the second part of the installation, it's the platforms you want to use, the languages you want to use, etc. This is the same, regardless of you download the online installation, which pulls all the data or files from the internet or offline if you use an ISO. Now, in this new version, there are two main changes. One is that the 64-bit IDE is not optional anymore. In previous version, when we introduced it, it was optional. In case you didn't want to use it, you can uncheck the option to install the 64-bit IDE. Now it comes by default. With this, I don't mean that the 32-bit IDE has been replaced. What I mean is that now 32-bit and 64-bit both are installed in parallel. And of course, you can choose which one you want to use for development. Of course, I'm going to encourage you to use the 64-bit IDE, but I understand that there's still some third-party components that are not compatible with 64-bit. So now you can choose which one you want to use. And another thing we've changed, the Windows SDK, now it is not installed automatically, or it's not integrated with our installer because of some distribution issues. But we warn you if the Windows SDK is not installed. Not all customers need the Windows SDK, so it's optional. And in case it's not installed on your computer, you're going to get a warning saying, hey, you can download it from here. So you just click the link and download the Windows SDK in case you need it. But it's not bundled in the installer anymore. Another big deal, even though it only changes the name, excuse me. This is something that, for me, is quite a big deal. We've standardized and unified all the numbers for everything. So if you're familiar with the guts of the application, you probably know that we had a compiler version, then we have an IDE version, then we have a FileMonkey version. So everything was quite complex, a lot of numbers, a lot of versions. Now we've standardized everything, and now everything has the same version number. And what the decision was to take the highest one, which was a compiler. So now everything is 37.0. For example, now when you install RAD Studio, if you want to find the path where it's installed, you're going to find that there's a 37.0. Same thing with BDS in the registry. So now everything is 37, which is on par with the compiler version. RAD Studio has a comprehensive and powerful IDE. It's also highly customizable. And now the 64-bit IDE, which is compatible at the moment with Windows 64, but is feature completed. So all the basic requirements for development, if you're aiming only on Windows, for Windows, now are there. So you can use it exactly as if you were using the 32-bit IDE, but of course, with all the benefits that a 64-bit IDE allows. We're planning on integrating more platforms, which is now the bit that is still missing from the 64-bit IDE. But for Windows 64, now it's fully compatible. In version 12.3, we launched the preview and still had a few missing parts. For example, Visual Assist wasn't available for C++. Now it's available. COM, ActiveX, and type libraries weren't available. Now they are as well. Live templates and the surround menu are as well available in 64-bit IDE. And also an insane amount of quality improvements that, of course, we've detected and a lot of customers have reported. We've removed a few things from the IDE, and I will give you more details about this and the reason behind it. For example, the UML modeling has been fully scrapped, but not only from the 64-bit IDE, but also from the 32. So this is a feature that is not there. Not a lot of people were using it, but now it's not there. So we've decided to remove it. And also related features like audits and metrics are not there. The biggest one is the refactoring menu that we removed at the moment. As you can see here in the screenshot, it's grayed out. We had some technical debt with the refactoring menu. Also, it wasn't working great with all the new language features, etc. It wasn't at its best shape. Of course, we're planning on bringing it back, but we're also offering an alternative that we will see in a second. As I said, Visual Assist, aka VA, has been fully reworked for the 64-bit IDE, and now it's enabled. So if you use C++ Builder with the 64-bit IDE, now you have Visual Assist and running in 64 bits. The code tooling also has been improved. We've brought back the code inside from prior Delphi LSP. This is a sticky topic. We know that Delphi LSP it doesn't work correctly in some scenarios, and we're really committed to improve this, and we do believe that Delphi LSP is the future. We are putting a lot of resources in making Delphi LSP top tier code completion. But in the meantime, we've brought back the classic code inside, because in some scenarios, usually with legacy code that maybe doesn't follow very modern patterns, etc., it works better in those scenarios. So we brought it back, and now you can choose. Of course, by default, we're still activating Delphi LSP. But if you're having a lot of issues with Delphi LSP and your code, maybe it's worth analyzing this path. In the meantime, while we finish all the improvements for Delphi LSP, we've also created a new upgrade advisor wizard. This actually is related with Delphi LSP. This one will highlight potential issues or meaningful changes that you could do in your code to improve not only Delphi LSP functionality, but also at the compiler level. For example, if you heavily use circular references, or you're using a specific syntax that was used, I don't know, 20 years ago, and now a different way is recommended to be more optimized for LSP and the compiler. All these will be highlighted. No, it's only a report, so it won't change your code, but at least it will point you in the right direction about potential changes you can do in your code. This is not built into the IDE. It's available on Get It, so you can download for free directly from Get It. And as I was talking about the refactor menu, the option we recommend in the meantime, because we have to redo it from scratch, the option we offer and we recommend is MMX Code Explorer. It's available for 32-bit and 64-bit IDE, so it's compatible with both. And honestly, the amount of options with MMX are by far way more than what we were offering with the standard refactoring menu. So if you want to explore MMX, we upload it to Get It, and it's literally one click away. Install it and play around with the options, because honestly, it's insane the amount of things you can do with MMX. I understand that the learning curve could be a bit steep, but again, it's way better than we were offering with our previous refactoring menu. The debugger quality, we also moved our LLDB, which is the debugger, to version 12. So now we have the same as the C++ compiler. And also we did a bunch of improvement in the quality area on the debugger in comparison with 12.3, that we knew that the debugger wasn't working in all the scenarios. So as you can see, I'm not going to go through each of these the new improvements, but as you can see, and the list continues on the next slide, a lot of improvements in the debugger for the 64-bit IDE. And also the attached to process dialog box has been redesigned to include additional columns. This one, again, very, very, very handy new feature, which is a search panel. So, but it has been integrated in multiple areas of the IDE. So now you can search, for example, files in your structure, or you can actually, let's quickly see a demo. I think that's going to make more sense. So this is the RAD Studio 64. If we open a project and we open a file, now for example, you can see here that we have this search panel, but it's in multiple places. So we have it here, we have it here, and if you compile, and you show them the messages. In this case, I'm not getting any message. Oh well. But in a nutshell, once you click here, you can search, and also, of course, it's a fuzzy search, so it doesn't need to be exactly the name. So it searches parts of it, and also you can change if you wanted to make it sensitive, whole world, regular expressions, etc. And it's also very handy in case you have, let's say, a module. Then you can search here in the structure as well. So you can search specifically like a connection, etc. And of course, you can type as well. So, and this is also, as I was talking about, this is also shown in the message panel, as we can see here in the slides. So this is very handy for quickly, mostly in big projects, to find whatever you're looking for. More improvements. Now the Smart Code Insight, which is our AI for developers, so the one you use to help you code faster or make questions to AI. Now we introduce a few improvements, and also you have a handy test button. So once you configure, as you can see here in the screenshot on the right, once you configure your LLM of choice, you define the base URL, API key, etc., and you can test the connection right from here instead of coming back to the IDE and see if things are working. Also, multiple improvements, as I said, minor improvements, but very, very nice for your daily work. Now you can customize the colors of the structural highlights. In case you don't like the default ones, you can customize them. You can copy errors from the structure pane, not only from the messages at the bottom, but in case you get any errors in the structure pane, you can copy them as well to your clipboard. And a stack trace visible by default in the exception dialog. Tools API, this is something that we really, really care about, is the way for you or third-party developers to connect in an official way to the IDE and to perform not only queries or see the state of the IDE, but also to interact with the IDE. So it's pretty much for you to customize the IDE through official interfaces we offer. So we keep extending this. We have in a doc wiki a bunch of documentation about how this works, but now we keep adding new features. In this case, we added notifications when the editor cursor moves. So now you have events like when a key has been pressed or cursor has been moved, etc. The resource compiler, even though you can still use the default one, a resource, in case you don't know, is the way you embed binaries or other files inside your executables. By default, as we can see here down here, we have the BRCC32, which is the Borland resource compiler. But now we're offering as well an extra one called Resonator that is open source. And you can choose whichever you want. This is for specific edge cases, people attaching like complex resources to their binaries. So now you have multiple options. And also, if you have the Windows SDK installed, you can even use the Microsoft Windows SDK resource compiler as well. Getit has had also a bunch of new improvements. One of my favorite ones is now that you can choose before installation which version of that package you want to install. Before this, it was the latest version. You couldn't choose which one you wanted. So if in Getit, we have multiple different versions. You can click this little arrow button and you can choose which version you want. This is very handy in case there has been some breaking change in the library in the latest version. So now you're not forced to update to the latest version, and you can choose whichever you want to install. And once you have the package installed, there's also more information. One that I personally like a lot is that now you can open the folder where this package has been installed, because it's a bit of an obscure folder. It's quite tricky to find them if you don't know where to look. Now you simply can come here and click the Open Install folder, and it will open automatically. That's very handy because we provide a lot of demo projects through Getit, or we even have a book, Getting Started with RAD Studio, is available through Getit. So this is a very easy way to just open the content and analyze it without you going through complex paths. We also launched something very exciting. We called it RAD AI Companion, and it's a website. You have a QR code here, and you also have a link. The link is down here, sorry. We're still providing, of course, our doc wiki and the standard usual documentation, but we launched this chatbot that is tailored with all our documentation, books, etc. So it has been specifically trained on our product and its libraries. It's free to use. You don't need a subscription to try it, so feel free to test it out. Here's a screenshot of how it looks. It's pretty much a chatbot, but as I said, has been trained with all or the whole doc wiki from multiple versions and all the internal documentation as well. So feel free to ask questions to it. My personal opinion is that this is very good for people that are not very familiar with RAD Studio or Delphi or C++. So in case you have questions about, for example, we're seeing here, what's the most important class in the VCL library? The most important class is the object. The VCL, we could argue that. Personally, I would say it's the component. But again, as I said, this is to make new developers from Delphi have a very quick way of asking questions and getting answers. Of course, that is a bit of a joke, no? The object and the component. We all know that they are pretty much the same thing. But if you talk about specifically VCL, I would say it's the component. But anyway, very, very cool stuff. Even if you're an experienced developer, I would ask you to try it and make a few questions. And the good thing is that once it gives you some context, it will give you links as well to the doc wiki where specifically this topic is discussed. One of the highlights of this RAD Studio 13 is the new Smart Core AI component pack. And our approach so far had been to provide AI tools for you to use in your development. So you could integrate AI in your development workflow. So you could use a chat box in case you wanted to ask questions, or you could ask, explain me this code, etc., etc. But that was only for you as a developer. Now we launched this set of components that will enable you to integrate AI in your applications. So these are, again, available on Getit. We decided to put them through Getit instead of building them in the IDE itself, because this is a very, very changing space. What is up to date today, maybe in 2 weeks, if they want. And as you know, the components that come with the IDE come through the installer. So we thought it would be a better idea to have them available on Getit. And in case we need to update them or upgrade them for any reason, because now, I don't know, AI changes completely the way it's done, we could update the components without releasing a patch or something like that. So what we are providing is a building block and a foundation for the future. So what we're enabling is a very simple and broad way of connecting to a bunch of different AI LLMs and providers. It's similar to the approach, similar to how Fireback works. So we have a AI connection, and then that AI connection uses a driver, and the driver is the one that connects to specifically, I don't know, Claude, ChatGPT, or Llama, whatever. And then you have another set of components to create that are predefined to perform specific tasks. We're going to see an example in a second. And they are, of course, compatible for all platforms and VCL and FireMonkey. Here, it's pretty much what I just explained. You have the base AI connection component, and then you have multiple drivers you can use to connect to different providers. And then these are pre-configured with a specific, because at the end of the day, all the services are just REST API calls. And that's pretty much conceptually the architecture of the components. We're reiterating what we're talking about here. It offers a connection wizard as well to configure connection and test it out directly. So in case you want to test that before running the application, you can test it directly from the IDE. And the good thing is that this is such an open technology that you can create your own drivers in case you want to connect to an LLM that we're not providing a driver from. We provide a bunch of base classes that you can use to create your own driver. And you can even integrate them in the IDE via the tools API, because we have a specific APIs to integrate with the smart code inside, which is the AI to be used within the IDE. Very cool stuff. Let's see a quick demo, because I think it's going to make more sense. You can download from our GitHub. If you access github.com/Embarcadero, you're going to find a repository with a bunch of smart code core AI demos. It comes with a group project. And as you can see here on the right, a bunch of different examples for VCL and FireMonkey. And also for some of the providers, we can see OpenAI, we can see Claude, etc. And also different types of examples. So you have chat, you have image, and you have stream. For example, if you want to send an audio clip to be translated, for example, then you have to send that as a stream, because of course it's not text. But one that I do like and is quite RAD Delphi-like idea is this one here, which is the JSON OpenAI VCL. So let's open this form. And this one, what it does, we send a prompt that says return array of any 5 cities with field. Of course, this could be customized for you, this prompt, and actually you can run the application. And then you can tweak this prompt. But this one, what it does, imagine that you have an application and you get some data, like some unstructured data, and you send it to the LLM and you say, hey, this is blah, 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 blah. And I want a JSON array, structure this and return a JSON array. So if we send a JSON request, I think I configured this demo actually, yes. And as we can see, we get this straight away in a mem table already structured from the response we got from the LLM. Because we added in the prompt, I only want a JSON array. Don't tell me how good I am and how good my idea is. I just want the data. So if we do this and we tweak the prompt, we're providing components as well, which is this one here. This is a TAI JSON request. So what we're doing here, we're hooking this component to the AI connection, and then we hook this to a mem table. So this little component, what it does, it converts that JSON response and then map it directly to a mem table. That's why with the standard data source now, I can link this to a grid, and the response has been shown automatically in a grid, which is quite cool. As I said, the world is your oyster. You can pretty much send whatever you need to the LLM. And this is quite cool if you have a database, for example, or if you have a bunch of data that you don't know, or it's very complex to structure, you could integrate this in your application, and your customers could use this to get like nice reports on organized data. And it's literally a matter of minutes to set this up in your applications. And of course, you can do the standard, which is just a chat to get a response, and you can generate images as well. But I wanted to highlight this one, which I think is quite cool. And of course, this was a VCL demo, so I could use a data source to connect to a grid. But if you use this on FMX, you can use data bindings as well to hook all that data to a standard grid. I'm going to skip this one because we pretty much just saw this one on the demo. As you can see here on the script, on this screenshot, where you can use the live bindings. I'm very behind. I just noticed the time that it is. I speak a lot, sorry. When it comes to platforms, runtime libraries and data, with other platforms, we of course, as you probably know, we target multiple platforms, and we maintain low-level APIs abstracted, so you can use components to avoid going low level, but still you could access them if you wanted to. Just a quick recap on Windows. You can target Windows 11, Windows 10, and Windows Server 2025 and 2022, although Windows 10, it's about to die. I think it won't in Europe. I don't know the current status really. 32 and 64-bit, and on platforms on Delphi only, we have iOS 18, macOS 14 and 15, Android 16, 15, and 14. We're already supporting Android API level 35, which is the latest requirement from Google. And Ubuntu we support now as well, version 24, and Red Hat version 10, and WSL 2. We've done multiple updates on Android behind under the hood. Nothing crucial for you. That's the thing. We're doing the heavy lifting under the hood for you, so you don't need to care about all the stuff. Like for example, Google, now the page size requirement is going to be 16 kilobytes. Of course, we're trying to make this transparent for you, so you don't need to change anything in your applications. And a bunch of other more technical stuff that I think I'm going to start going a bit faster. On iOS, we did some cleanup on the APIs. We added a couple of dozen missing functions, and again, under the hood maintenance. On Windows APIs, we've been doing a lot of cleanup as well. We updated the WinRT, refreshed the classic Win API, and also multiple updates in WebView. So we have this TH browser component that you can use to integrate websites or web views in your applications. A bunch of quality improvements in this space. And I mean, we could honestly say that if you're aiming for Windows applications, Delphi and C++, I would say they are the state-of-the-art solutions to achieve the best results possible with any other competitors. On the runtime library, including database RTLs, we've focused primarily on quality, but with many small enhancements. Like, I mean, we couldn't even list all of them in this presentation. For example, on JSON processing, we've been working a lot in the JSON value serialization, so to serialize objects to JSON and vice versa. We introduced, for example, to read as integers of 64-bit ID. The class TJSON number has been reworked, even though it's still compatible. We've improved the generics get value. A bunch of the stuff as well in the RTL improvements, like for the T-path, T-registry, T-threaded queue, a bunch of little quality of life improvements. And web client libraries, we added HTTP 3 protocol support for the HTTP clients. That's also quite a big deal. More high focus actually on the unsigned big integer, which is quite common in big databases. At the moment, we support for Oracle and MySQL. Also dragging fields to form. Now, this is a feature that not a lot of people know. So you can come to a query and just drag and drop the fields directly on a form, and that creates automatically a label and an edit, a database edit. So this has been expanded. So now there is an overloaded event that you could customize, or third parties could customize to do something different of the default behavior, in case you want to use a different component instead of the standard database RAD Studio components. If you want to use a third-party component, you could customize this as well. Excuse me. Okay, the FireDAC side, I'm sure you're very aware about what FireDAC is. It's a universal database access library that connects to, I don't even remember the number of databases. We've, again, multiple new improvements in FireDAC. For example, we support now our Auth 2.0 for authentication for Oracle 19. Now, in FireDAC 5, we support the parallel backup operation for the FB backup component. We improved support for PostgreSQL, the array types. On the FD mem table, now we support regskip and regmax for filtering. So that's pretty much the properties you use to filter a specific set of records. So in case you need pagination, this has been primarily for web stencils and stuff like that. These now are available on mem table as well. One that is very cool, then now you can load the standard JSON, like a plain JSON. It doesn't need to be a specific FireDAC-like JSON. You can just get any JSON. Of course, it cannot be a very complex JSON with nested stuff. It needs to be a one-dimension array. But you can now load a standard JSON directly in the mem table. We also launched I'm going to mention this very briefly. A few weeks ago, Interbase 15. At the moment, with RAD Studio 13, we're still bundling Interbase 2020. But we secretly, quietly provided as well a valid Interbase 15 dev license. So in case you want to explore all the new features of Interbase 15, you can download directly, and the license should load automatically. On VCL, a lot of very cool stuff to modernize your applications. For example, now, since we introduced the title bar panel, which is this component that allows you to customize the title bar with your own components. Now, in case you're using, on top of that, you're using styles. Now those styles will be applied as well to the components in the state and the title bar, as you can see here in this little demo on the right. The action main menu bar control now supports scrolling. This is something that, ironically enough, it was broken on the Windows API. So Microsoft wouldn't fix it. So in case you have an insanely long menu and it couldn't fit on the desktop, it got the options at the bottom got lost. So now we introduced this little arrow. So now you can scroll through the menu. As I said, this was something that not even Microsoft fixed, but now in VCL has been fixed. It also works for pop-up action bars and also sub-menus. We introduced in version 12.0, I think it was, a very cool new component, Forms Tabs Bar. Allows you to modernize your MDI applications. In case you're not aware, Microsoft marked as legacy MDI, so they're not improving the technology anymore. Actually, it doesn't work on high DPI monitors. So we rewrote completely the API because we have a lot of customers using MDI. But not only that, we also provided new components to modernize an MDI application with very, very little code. So we extended all these improvements because we saw that a lot of customers are modernizing their applications. And now you can even integrate this in the title bars and also using the styling. So if you have an MDI application, please take a look because it makes the MDI application looks very, very modern. And a bunch of quality improvements and minor features on VCL. Again, this is not all the stuff we introduced, it's just a handful of them. And in the FireMonkey space, we have a display link service. Now it's for smoother animations. Now using platform native API based on, if it's Android, it uses J Choreographer, and if it's on iOS, it uses CA display link. This is, again, under the hood. You don't need to do anything, but the animations are going to be much smoother. We have a new mask edit component that is VCL style, so similar to VCL, as you can see in the screenshot bottom right. A bunch of other new improvements. One that is quite cool is the new align layout improvements. So in case there weren't enough, now we have more ways to align components in FMX applications. We also, now that I know that we had FMX Linux out of Get-It for a while, there were some legal issues that they weren't related to us directly. There were some implications because of the creator passed away. But now we have FMX Linux back, and we're really integrating it in the IDE now. Because now, of course, it's available on Get-It, but now it's also shown as an available style, as you can see in the screenshot. So now you can see how it will look on your Linux application directly from the IDE. We have updated the skia for Delphi to the latest version, and also the web browser, a browser component for Windows. We support version 16 of emojis. And again, I'm not going to go through all these because it's a lot of quality and and improvements in the FileMonkey space. Of course, once we share the video, I will share as well the slides, so you can take a look specifically on each of these in case you need more information. On the web space, we launched a bunch of new features on Web Broker that honestly, they're almost like a Web Broker 2.0. It has been the largest upgrade since Delphi 6. In case you don't know, Web Broker is RAD Studio's framework for building web servers, and you can create extensions for IIS, Apache, or NGINX, which is a new feature in 13, or just execute it as a standalone application. And is the foundation for RAD Server, DataSnap, and a bunch of third-party libraries. So now Web Broker, we have integrated sessions. We have a set of new components that allows you to handle web sessions. So if someone logs in, that you verify that their credentials are valid. Cookie will be created automatically in the browser, and the expiration will be handled automatically, etc. So it's pretty much a full-blown session management. I think we have 4 different components we will see in a second. We introduced fast CGI support for NGINX. Also, you could use it for Apache, but primarily we're aiming for NGINX. Also some improvements in the Apache config, and also integrated login. Now with this, in case you created, for example, an Apache module, you can integrate the login within the Apache server login system itself. Same thing with Windows and CGI and fast CGI. These are the new components I was talking about. The T-Web Session Manager, T-Web Basic Authenticator, Web Forms, Web Authorizer. I'm not going to go through all the technical details, just so you know, because you're interested in web development. Now you have this whole Web Session Manager. We created we integrated it with Web Stencils, and I think the easiest way for you to understand how this works is downloading the Web Stencils demo, because we integrated already these components. So now the Web Stencils demo shows some restricted areas that you cannot access if you don't log in, etc. And Web Stencils, which is a recent new feature in RAD Studio, in case you're not aware, was introduced in 12.2. And we keep extending it because it has been very, very successful. It's a server-side template engine that integrates with Web Broker and RAD Server or any other third-party web solution. We know that some third-party vendors are already integrating Web Stencils in their options, in the solution, sorry. And in version 13, you get a major upgrade with integration of sessions, and also new data access options, a switch statement, and much more. The highlights of this, of version 13, of course, is this new session components available for Web Broker that are seamlessly integrated with Web Stencils, so you can access add session, and then you have access directly to all the session information of the user that is accessing the website right that second. We have multiple extra variables, also a new switch statement that will allow you to have much cleaner code. As you can see here in the example, it's a bit small, but I guess you can see it. You can use a case and then, a switch, and then you have multiple cases. So it makes sense for HTML in case you want to render specific types based on a condition. Direct access to dataset properties. This is a big deal. Now we exposed the metadata from FireDAC. So for example, now you cannot only access if the record of a FireDAC query. So for example, you could access before with @customer.name, but now you can access even the metadata of FireDAC. So that allows you to create your templates based on the metadata. For example, we can check if a field is marked as visible or not to show that on the website, or we can check the display name that we decided for that field specifically, so we can render a label on HTML based on that data. So if we change that on the FireDAC query, it will change automatically in your template without you needing to go and modify the HTML. So it's pretty much database schema UI-driven approach, we could call it. And also multiple improvements in the extra header for nested support. And also we extended the properties on the add page keyword. This is how you access the session information and web stencils. So you can also customize the sessions with your custom data. You can inject custom variables or objects and access those directly from web stencils. And we have this handy user has role. So it allows you to check if the session that has been accessed right that second has a specific role to render some parts of the website or not. So web stencils is even easier and more powerful than 12.2. We're really committed to this new technology we introduced, and as you can see, we're improving it on each version a lot, given a robust web server powered solution for your applications. RAD server has been multiple improvements, but pretty much quality of life, more flexible Swagger based API documentation with multiple new properties. We introduce a way for multi-tenancy in case you want to, instead of using the built-in RAD server multi-tenancy, now you can integrate your own multi-tenancy solution. So less opinionated multi-tenancy. And also a way to version in your APIs in case you want to release a version 2, then you can version your APIs in an easier way with RAD server. But what about quality? I mean, I think you can get the idea that, as we talked about, we introduced a bunch of quality improvements in RAD Studio 13, but just to throw some numbers, we have the quality portal. In case you're not familiar, please go to quality portal, because it's where things happen. It's literally what our developers and engineers use to decide what's going to be introduced in version 13. And it's a tool we use internally for us as well. So we fixed 318 customer reported issues, and 108 were feature requests. So not bug fixes, but actually feature requests. So in total, 734 customer reports addressed. Of course, this includes duplications, etc. But yeah, we handled 734 tickets created by customers. On top of that, all our internal tickets, as you can imagine. So please, we have the old portal, which is quality.embarcadero.com, but we migrated to a much nicer one, and the link is qp.embarcadero.com. So this is the summary. I'm not going to go through it because I'm so behind. And yes, in case you don't know, RAD Studio 13 is already available. So if you're an active maintenance or subscription, you can download it already. And that was pretty much it. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, and we have the time for the questions, I will be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Antonio. That was great. We are a bit short on time, but we also do have a break after this. So I think we can actually take a couple of questions. David, do you have any questions that we got in?
Yes, actually, there are a few questions that came in. First of all, Tony, I would like to say I especially like the Smart Core AI component pack. Amazing.
Yeah.
It's a great feature.
Yeah, the thing is, you can do pretty much what you need. So we try to make it as least opinionated as possible, so you can integrate that with your applications in the way you need. But also at the same time, make it as RAD as possible. So you just drop a few components and off you go.
Really cool. Can you just confirm it's available? Well, you get it via Get It, of course, but is it available regardless edition of RAD Studio you have?
Yes, it's available for all editions. So if you have professional, enterprise, you name it, it will be available for you. You only need to have an active maintenance subscription. That's the only requirement.
Oh, okay, cool. So let's have a quick look at the chat window. We have received a few questions, and well, why don't we start right away? The first one is regarding if-then methods, and the question goes, I've been using if-then methods available in Delphi. What's the difference with the new ternary operator?
Okay. Well, the if-then method, that was created as a helper for emulate kind of a ternary operator, because we had a lot of people asking for a ternary operator. So the if-then, it's like a helper, it's a function that you could write yourself if you wanted to, but just we wrote it and we made it available through our RTL. It's not very optimized because it evaluates both sides of the condition, And also there are some specific edge cases where it doesn't work. In this case, the ternary operator is at a compiler level. So it's way more optimized and way faster than the previous if-then solution we provided that also was limited to just a handful of data types. With the new ternary operator, you can use it for pretty much any type you want. So yeah, we could say that if you're going to use it only for strings and numbers, it doesn't look like a new feature, but I can tell you that the options are way more powerful with a ternary operator.
Okay, thanks. Next question is regarding refactor. I believe quite a few might have this question, so I'll read it out loud. I've installed Delphi 13, but the menu refactor is disabled. How can I enable it back?
Well, I mentioned that briefly through the presentation, but I fully understand that this is a very recurring question and people don't really, they install the application and then they go to the refactor menu. What is my refactor menu? I understand that raises a lot of questions and concerns. The thing is, we had some because as you know, we've migrated the whole IDE to 64-bit IDE, to 64-bit technology, sorry. And that has been an insane effort to get the whole thing working. So some very complex and difficult decisions had to be made in this process because we, as you can imagine, as you have with your applications, we also have some technical debt that we're dragging from, Delphi has been going on for many years. So the refactoring menu was one of those technical debts. It was using a very old .NET technology. It didn't support most of the new language features either. It wasn't even working correctly in big projects because the indexing was pretty much broken. So a lot of customers had to actually disable from the registry of Windows the refactoring menu. So I understand that some people that were used to this refactoring menu and it worked for them could be a bit annoyed by the fact that it's now not there. But the reason behind it is because we're building it from scratch and to be compatible. So we're making the decision of removing it so we can provide something more powerful in the future. As I mentioned as well in the presentation, it's not like we removed it and that's it. We are offering a free alternative that is actually even better, on my personal opinion, than what it was there with the refactoring menu, which is MMX Explorer. You only need to download from Get It. It's free, again, available for all editions. I understand that it's changed. I don't like it. I want my and I understand that. You're used to a specific workflow, and now we're changing it. I understand that could be annoying, but please spend some time with MMX Explorer because it's honestly insanely better than what we were offering before with the refactoring menu. And as I said, we're not saying that this is the future refactoring menu. This is the solution we recommend you to look into while we bring back the much better and powerful and up-to-date refactoring menu.
Okay, thanks. I can see we have two more questions before we wrap up. One is more specific about iOS and one more general question about Delphi. So let's start with the iOS question. Yep. iOS 26 was released a few weeks ago. When is Delphi going to support it?
Okay. This was very bad timing. It was a matter of timing. The thing is, when we launched RAD Studio 13, iOS 26 wasn't officially released yet. So we couldn't say for RAD Studio, because you can imagine certifications, etc. It's not like we can say, yeah, iOS 26 is compatible without iOS 26 being officially launched yet. So that's why we cannot say officially that iOS 26 is compatible with RAD Studio 13. That being said, it is. So unofficially, I can tell you that it is. We actually published a blog post about the steps you can follow. We can share a link on the follow-up email,
sure.
Where we explain how you can configure iOS 26 and the latest version of Xcode with RAD Studio 13. As I said, we're not allowed to legally say that we're certified for iOS 26 yet, but it works.
Okay, great, thanks. A final question about a user or a prospect who's currently looking at Delphi, but he's a bit uncertain if Delphi is the way to go. His question goes as follows. What are the key differentiators that makes Delphi stand out compared to other low-code or cross-platform solutions?
Well, in my personal opinion, is that our commitment to back compatibility. So if you've been working with other low-code or even no-code solutions, you probably have if you're going through a greenfield project, you probably get the feeling saying, well, I could build this very quickly. I could build it as fast as with RAD Studio. Why should I bother with RAD Studio? The main differentiator for me is that we do care about your application being relevant in the future, which means that your code will still be valid in the future. I know for a fact, I mean, if I don't want to say names, but .NET, for example, with other alternatives, I know that things get broken way more often than they happen with our solutions. Even they say this is legacy now, you have to rewrite your application from scratch. This has happened with other solutions. With FineMonkey, I mean, if you're aiming for Windows, exclusively for Windows, we have no competitor. Not even Microsoft provide a better solution for creating Windows applications. If you're aiming for a multi-platform solution, with FineMonkey, we really focus on making all your changes retro-compatible. We rarely introduce breaking changes, and if we do, we provide tools to make the transition as smooth as possible for you. So for me, that would be the key differentiator with competitors. It's like your application will still relevant and valid way longer than with other tools.
Great. Thank you so much, Antonio. Just a quick reminder, if you have any questions about RAD Studio, please do not hesitate to contact me. It's David at Alfasoft.com or Antonio directly.
Yeah, I like to put my email on my presentations because that's also something you usually don't get with other companies. Good luck trying to speak with someone from Microsoft if you have questions. So if you have any questions, feel absolutely free to, of course, ping David or ping me directly. If it's something very technical, ping me directly. I'm more than happy to answer your questions, or even if it's required, we can have you in a chat on Teams or Google Meets or whatever.
Great. So with that said, Finn, maybe you want to close up?
I will. Thank you, Antonio.